All right, everybody, special guest today, Mr. Bob Brown. And if you don't know who Bob is, you better have a look. And the channel for his channel is going to be in the information section down below. So make sure you check it out and give him a subscribe. But Bob had just shot some videos on his channel that I found interesting and intriguing, because coming off of restarting practices on the tail end of the pandemic, we had a large group of guys get together and just beat the shit out of each other for hours. Now, this is something I've thought about at length over my long career in the sport. Bob had commented on it, but there are two aspects of this. Number one is practicing properly, which Bob did a video on, and another one was on recovery. Now, the point you made, Bob, when the recovery one was talked about is doing max effort repetitions in other sports like bench press, where you might max out periodically. Certainly, right. Probably not weekly, and not 100 times in a row was, I think, your quote. So
pretty much.
I guess my question is, how would you deal with that? How do you structure a practice that keeps guys safe and protects their longevity and gets them training optimally?
This is how I would suggest doing it. Here's the problem. Like I said in that video, you ask any strength sport, strength coach, any country, and ask them the question, how often should you go 100% or go 100% and then have it be a negative, like you can't do the 100%.
Yeah.
And if you told them that I know guys that do this every single week 100 times at a practice, they'd all laugh and say, you are freaking crazy. Okay. So, but practice is the most fun part of our sport. It's never going to stop. So this is how I would approach it. You got two guys at practice. And, well, first of all, there's two types of practice. One is practice to go over technique, which really doesn't require a whole lot of effort. Okay. That practice you can do every single day, 5 times a day. It's like I can swing a hammer 8 hours a day, every day of my life. Okay. At that level of effort. But if you're practicing for strength or for power, then you got two guys on the table. One of them is stronger than the other. The one who's stronger simply holds the weaker one in any position he wants. He wants to hold in the neutral, in the losing, in the winning position, in a hook, in a top roll, whatever position he wants. He just holds them. And then the other guy goes as hard as he wants to go. Okay. In my opinion, without hitting, because hitting is a form of plyometrics, and plyometrics, while it's the fastest way to get strong, it's the fastest way to hurt yourself. So what you have there is you have the stronger guy not going at 100% because he's holding the weaker guy. Also, the stronger guy is not taking the weaker guy's 100% effort and tearing it open. So that would be my suggestion is, again, the stronger guy just holds the weaker guy in any position he wants or any position they feel like working on at that moment. And the stronger guy just holds them there and the weaker guy goes. And I would only do that for no more than 10 or 12 seconds. Take a rest, do it again. I mean, the rest can be small. I mean, I'm trying to mitigate what I know is reality, where guys get together and arm wrestle for hours and hours and give them a better way of doing it. Even that to me is still not the most perfect way of doing it. You know, a more perfect way of doing it would be, okay, I would think of it like a bench press workout. The bench press workout, I'm going to get on the bench. I'm going to warm up. I'm going to add some weight and do 8 reps or 5 reps, whatever. I'm going to add more weight. I'm going to do 3 reps. I'm going to add more weight. I'm going to do 1 rep. And then maybe I'll add more weight and do 1 rep. Well, if you were to do that in arm wrestling practice, you'd grab someone you can control really easily, hold them for 10, 15 seconds. There's your warm up. Another stronger guy that you can hold for 10 seconds. There's your next warm up. Grab a couple more guys. Grab a guy that you're pretty freaking even with and go crazy hard for 10 or 12 seconds. And then grab the guy who's better than you and let him hold you while you go hard for 10 or 12 seconds and then go home.
The issue is,
yeah,
that only works if you're the second strongest guy at the practice.
Well, but you just got to pick your guys, Yes. No, you can do that with anyone. The hard person is if you're the weakest guy at practice.
Right.
You only really need one guy stronger than you and one guy weaker than you. Like, so John Berzink, for example, okay, I practiced with him for 20 years. He's clearly the strongest guy at practice. So John would just hold us until we quit. And then he'd grab a fresh arm and hold that arm until it quit. And he kept doing it until eventually he got tired and his arm went down.
That's kind of what I do.
Right. And that's exactly what I do. That's all I do anymore, especially at age 55. That is all I do anymore.
So what would you say to the guy that shows up and says, I have all this endurance. I never get tired, never wins a match, but can pull 175 matches. And it doesn't seem to impact him pain-wise, health-wise, but I don't see a benefit to it in the long run.
Here's what I would say to that guy. The same thing I would say to the bench press or the guy who does push-ups every day of his life. He does 200 push-ups every single day of his life. But for some reason, he doesn't understand why he can't get his bench press above 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Or above whatever, 300 pounds. I do push-ups every day of my life. I can't get my bench above 300 pounds. Stop doing push-ups. Focus on your more 1 rep max or 3 rep max range. Forget about the push-ups. Your muscles are never getting time to recuperate.
Yeah.
And you'll start getting stronger.
It is, and it is the question of how much is too much. So if you're maxing out, in theory, you do that one time in your workout.
Right.
In arm wrestling, that would mean the first time you lose, you sit
Go
out.
home. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there was a time where I've never really focused on my left arm, but there was a time I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start doing a little bit on my left arm, but I'm too lazy to train it with cables and weights and bands like I do my right arm because I'm lazy. All I'm going to do is arm wrestle with my left arm. And so we go to practice every week. I basically do what John Berzink did. I'd hold guys until I couldn't hold them. And then I'd rest 15 minutes and I'd do it again and move on. But every week I would want to try to measure myself. So I'd grab a guy that I kind of knew how I stood with him left-handed. And I'd grab him, I'd warm up and I'd grab him relatively fresh. And I noticed that every single week I was making gains. It's like, this guy used to kill me. Now it's a hard match. Now I beat him. Move to the next guy. This guy used to beat me. Now it's a hard match. Next week, now I beat him. And I was measuring myself that way. And I was making very consistent gains every week, yet left-handed, I really wasn't I only went to failure like one time, maybe twice. And I was making gains. Would I have made gains faster if I would have incorporated some of the other exercises I do right-handed? Probably, but I didn't care. I was making gains. And one practice, man, I felt like I was near top dog at practice. And 2 months prior, there was 4 guys at practice I could never beat left-handed. And now 2 months later, I'm beating them all, you know?
That is interesting. That is interesting, especially for an athlete or a new guy that is not heavily supplemented or any of that stuff. They have to be very conscious of the effort they're putting in and the return they're going to get on that investment. So
exactly.
I was contemplating something like the once you lose 5 times, you sit down rule, you know.
Right.
However, that's going to happen very quickly for a lot of new guys. So it's almost like I'm considering doing a practice in 2 stages. There's the grip and rip stage where when you lose 5 times, you're out. And then the secondary table is where we go 30% and work on technique.
Fair enough. You know, yes. I mean, that's a good sound practice, you know. And now try to get people to actually want to do that. Try to get the 30 guys that come to my practice to actually want to do that when all they really want to do is see who's tougher that day. That's all they want to do. Rip and rip, right? That's it. You know, I got a guy, and if he sees this, he's going to know who I'm talking about. All he comes in and does is all he cares about is trying to win. He does this, you know, he tries to do this bullshit hand coming back, King's move thing. And I'm like, dude, why do you care so much about winning here? Because all you're doing is getting your ability to do this stronger. Okay, that's it. You're not getting your arm stronger coming across the table. You're not getting your hook stronger. You're not getting your hand and your wrist stronger. Because I guarantee you, even when tournament time rolls around and you're got to fall back to that move, that's fine. Hey, competition, it's, you know, win or go home. But in practice, I guarantee if you do all the other stuff, that move will get stronger. Yes. So why do you give a crap? All he cares about is winning at practice. And I've jumped this crap so many times about it now. He's finally come around and he doesn't do it as much. He usually comes in, he tests himself against a couple of guys, and then he gets into a good solid practice. You know?
I'm going to attempt to do the practice that I just described to you this Wednesday, and we'll see how it goes. And I need to get guys around the concept of, you know, getting better without overdoing it, because those guys, some of them are still sore, and we practiced last Wednesday.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's been many a time, you know, and I've said the famous words, don't do what I do what I say. Because I don't necessarily follow my own advice, because I like practicing too. I like grip and rip sometimes too. But now in my later years, it's really sinking in hard. Like, don't do this. And so my practices are now pretty regimented. I usually test myself against one guy one time just to see how I'm doing, because I don't normally beat this guy, or normally this guy kills me. I just want to see, and then immediately go into just holding guys.
Now, the second thing that you talked about, and when you had a standalone video about practicing properly, you talked about getting set up in a fair grip. That's the other thing the guys really seem to struggle. They're always trying to get an advantage and win in practice.
Right. That's because all they care about is winning. That's the reason they're doing it. They all, you know, Todd Hutchins said the famous words, which I 100% agree with. Are you chasing victories, or are you chasing excellence?
That's a very good statement.
Yes. And if you're chasing victories, then you're the guy who just wants to double cap, hide the thumb knuckle of everyone at practice because all you care about is winning. I don't want to arm. Well, if I can control that guy, I want to practice with that guy because I'll give him what he wants. I'll take the bad grip and still fight from a bad grip. I'm getting benefit out of that. He's getting no benefit out of that because he's never going to get that grip in a tournament.
That's right.
So, yeah.
I run into that all the time because I'm generally the strongest guy at practice.
Right.
It's pretty rare that I'm not. I mean, it has happened on occasion, but I will usually take whatever I'm given.
Exactly.
And try to just pull through it.
Yep.
However, that has zero benefit for the guy across the table from me.
Exactly.
Because in a tournament, all of a sudden guys that give me a little trouble in practice have no prayer because they're gripping fair.
They've got to get a real grip.
That's right. And that's where people seem to struggle as well.
Right. Now, I can make the argument for the other side of the coin. For example, you've got a guy that you can beat pretty easily, but the two of you would like to have a hard arm workout. So he grips you in a cheating manner, just so in that moment, you guys can have an equally hard arm workout.
Yes.
But he needs to realize he's never going to get that grip in a tournament. So when he wants to work his strength in a proper manner, that's when he needs to realize, okay, now let me get a equal grip against you, knowing he's going to feel like crap, but then fire from that position and it will work his hand and his wrist in a proper manner. And then he'll get benefit from that.
Yes. I can give you one really good example. There's I have a very good flop wrist presser in our club. And the counter is for him is gripping really low around his wrist and controlling that flopping of the hand. Yes. So I'm doing that to him and he hates it. And he will actually take my hand and move it higher on his hand. However, I think he's coming around because in a super match, he was defeated by that very grip, that low grip.
Right.
So him countering and finding ways around my low grip, which kind of neutralizes the power level a little bit as well.
Right.
Could be extremely beneficial for him.
Right. Especially if the guy who is gripping him low is, okay, if the guy's gripping him low, he's probably stronger than your flop wrist presser.
Yes.
But how much stronger is the key? Because as soon as someone grips you low, they are giving you a leverage advantage for a hook or a traditional shoulder roll.
Yep.
Keep your wrist and still come in with your shoulder. Just now, they're giving it to you.
Yes.
So he should train that.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, it might not work against a 300+ pound ryanespey, but it might work against whatever guy that just beat him in the tournament.
Yeah.
Right? That's the exact move that John Brzenk did against Jerry Cataret in Mohican Sun.
100%. And the right move on Jerry, like I didn't do it, but I learned later I shouldn't have went back. I should have went forward. But
right.
Yeah, not to give everyone the method of beating Jerry, but if you watch Travis's matches with him, it's pretty easy to figure out.
Right. Right. Oh, I actually did a video on how to beat a flop wrist presser. So I pretty much said, yeah, this is how to beat Jerry Cataret. Of course, you still got to have the strength to pull it off. And good luck with that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one other thing you wanted to talk about, Bob, I think was Cody Merritt kicking my ass. So you wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah. He's just going to tear your arm off and feed it to you the next time he sees you.
You know how many times I've heard that?
A lot of times. Yeah, probably a lot of times.
A lot of times, yeah.
And what's interesting with Cody is, ironically and truthfully, we just went over how to pull you at our last practice.
Interesting.
Specifically. And I said, well,
I'm curious what that looks like. Tell me how to pull me.
I'm not going to tell you until Cody pulls you. I will just say this. You are a traditional your normal move is a high posting top roll. That's your normal move.
With the left arm, yes, for sure.
Yeah, with the left arm. So there are traditional ways to try to beat a high posting top roll. I actually just made a whole video about how to beat Arsen Liliev, which is a high posting top roll. Now, at the end of the day, I know how to beat a high posting top roll, but if you don't have the strength to pull it off, I don't care if you know how to beat a high posting top roll,
Well, Cody has always tried to do a high posting top roll against my high posting top roll.
Of course he has.
Yeah.
And if Cody had a taller arm, he would probably be successful at that, in my opinion. But he doesn't have a taller arm.
It is very comparable, but I have slightly more height than him.
Exactly. And that's all it takes. Slightly more leverages in arm wrestling can amass to big advantages.
Yes.
And
it can,
now I'm sorry, go ahead.
It can make the difference between one guy looking like he doesn't belong there and one guy looking unstoppable, but that leverage and power difference could be very slight.
Very slight. You know what happens to a guy that whose single rep max is 400 pounds when you put 405 on the bar? It lays on him like a brick. It lays on him. It's only a 1% difference from being able to successfully move that weight to having it just lay on your chest. So you can be getting crushed by someone and be pretty close to beating them, and you just don't know it.
Yes.
It is very possible.
Yeah.
But the other thing you wanted to discuss when it comes to overtraining with arm wrestling millions and millions of matches is how to recover from that. And I did that video on recovery.
And I did watch that, and I agree with you. And I've done contrast baths periodically for years.
Yes. I mean, if we were all professional athletes and we were all being paid to arm wrestle, this was our job, right? We had trainers and coaches. We would be doing contrast baths every day of our lives. We would be getting massages every day of our lives. We would have the heat stuff that we put on when we warm up for a tournament. We would be putting that on our arms every day of our lives. We would be doing the 30-second drills that I referred to after practice as a way to flush out lactic acid.
Yep.
We would be doing that every day after practice. But it's also the most boring, the most time consuming, and just the part that sucks. And no one does it, including myself. I mean, we even have this sweet little contrast baths thing set up. I've got a big cooler. We've got ice. I've got a warming tray full of water about 8 inches deep. And all I got to do is turn the warming tray on before practice. And then boom, dump a bag of ice in, go back and forth. It's real easy. Too freaking lazy to turn the damn thing on. I just keep forgetting.
It's easier to just sit there after and watch TV.
Exactly.
If we were making millions of dollars, I would have the hot and cool pools in the backyard, and I would go back and forth.
Exactly.
But this is the dichotomy.
Yeah.
So I actually started using Epsom salts a lot to flush out inflammation as well.
Exactly.
It worked really well. And then the blood flow workouts that you're talking about. So today was an example. My training partner is considerably smaller than I am. He's very strong, but he was quite sore, and I was actually quite sore from our practice last week. So today was all elbow flexors, and it was 30%, 40% and high reps, just working on blood flow.
Right. Yep. I've got a hand bike, let's say. It's just thing, and you can do this. I mean, I should be doing that every day, for 10 minutes a day, and do it at a level that I could probably do it for hours, but just do it 10 minutes a day. I mean, I'm a big Tour de France fan. And what people don't realize is these guys ride every day for 21 days. And granted, it's about 5 hours a day. And for them, it's not a crazy hard ride until they get into the mountain stages, and the last half hour of the ride, they're killing themselves, right? And then what do they do when they're done racing that day? They get on a bike for 15 more minutes and just pedal to flush out all that lactic acid and to cool their muscles down, because they got to do it the next day. And what a lot of people don't know is they'll even get up the next morning and go for a bike ride before their official bike ride for that day. And it really got me to thinking. I mean, they're flushing out lactic acid. Well, why aren't we flushing out lactic acid at the end of each practice? And that's when I came up with these 30-second drills. You hold at I call them 30-second drills, but because I like to do them with 3 people. You got 2 on the table for 15 seconds. And then one of them comes out and another one comes in for 15 more seconds. And then this guy comes out and the guy who left comes back in for 15 seconds. So every 15 seconds, you're grabbing a hold of an arm that just had a 15-second rest, but you're only going at 30% power. And at the end of about 5 minutes, your arm feels, I refer to it as a healthy dead. Like it feels dead, but it feels so healthy. Then go do the contrast bath and you feel like you can arm wrestle again. I mean, you wake up the next day feeling, hey, I feel pretty solid again, and it makes a considerable difference.
Interesting. Well, that's a lot of information for people to take in for this video, Bob, and I thank you for joining me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And make sure to check out Bob's channel.
Yeah, I can't appreciate the next time I see you arm wrestle Cody and, he makes you look silly. I mean, that's, what I'm here for.
Well, I mean, he's got to get a win one of these times.
He's got to get it one time, right? I mean, he
maybe
thinks
not.
A lot of people will argue he's the number 1 guy in the world right now, left-handed. People will at least make that argument, right or wrong, doesn't matter. And to Cody, nope, not until he beats you.
And I know that's his thought process.
Yeah.
I know that. And I appreciate that thought process.
Yep.
So
it'll happen.
Yep, it will happen.
Cool.
Bob, thanks for joining me. And we will hopefully talk again soon. This was great.
Awesome. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Right on. Thanks.